Focus groups that Mark and John conducted in Iowa and New Hampshire. John sat down with Iowa's Democrats and Mark talked with Democrats in New Hampshire, getting their views toward Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders. And here's what the group said about Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton, 3 words or fewer.
Experience and knowledge.
I would say experienced and caring.
Hillary Clinton probably win.
Still impressive.
If you had a family situation and you could call any of those 3 Democrats for help, which one would you call and why?
Hillary. She seems like the most genuinely concerned.
She's a mom.
Yeah.
She's well connected as well.
She's such an accomplished female leader who, in the face of defeat, has continued to persevere.
She has seen how the system works, so she might have a better chance of getting things accomplished quicker.
She can skip over any learning curve whatsoever.
Here we are, a woman stepping into a predominant arena, and I think she felt like she had to hold her own with them instead of just being who she is. And I think she's doing that now.
I think my opinion is it's a little more general, just in that she speaks articulately about her positions without having that edge and that scorned kind of woman thing. That's a little off-putting.
Just talk a little bit more about that.
I think that can put off a lot of male voters.
Oh, tell me what it's like. What are you seeing that you're seeing?
You know, when she's, I don't want to use the word, but
you can.
It's that, like, women need to be equal. I mean, I don't feel unequal.
I agree. I don't feel unequal. I don't feel that I've had a job where I feel unequal to my male counterparts. So it's not an issue that speaks to me.
It's a double standard. If there was a guy up there saying that, he would be impassioned.
Do you agree with Shannon that some people might see that?
Oh, yeah.
I like Hillary. I think she's a strong candidate, but she has that.
I don't think you have to have that.
Yeah, and she has that condescending, and I can see that causing gridlock.
She does seem like a little condescending.
And I don't even think it's condescending. That's like a strange word for me. I'm thinking it's more like,
I'm smarter than you.
Yeah, and I'm a woman. I deserve it.
Yeah.
If she could lose that, I'd vote for it. That's my biggest problem.
I think it's not necessary.
Raise your hand if you think that could hurt Hillary Clinton's chances of getting elected.
She's going to push off a lot of men, I think.
People love her or hate her, and that's part of what does that to her, is that attitude or whatever.
Boy, talk about a split decision between Iowa and New Hampshire. I mean, Iowa is a Hillary campaign commercial. I mean, put music to it, and if I'm Hillary, I'm running that. New Hampshire, there was a real edge, and that conversation actually went on much longer in New Hampshire. But let's first start with Iowa. An overwhelming positive sense there. What happened when you brought up other candidates compared to Hillary?
Well, you know, there was a lot of, well, I think we're going to talk about Joe Biden in a minute, but in terms of Sanders and Clinton, the group these are all undecided voters. So they had preferences here and there, but they weren't committed to any of the candidates. So there was a lot of enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders in the room. There was, I thought, a lot of admiration for Hillary Clinton. The room was sort of, if you had to say which way they were leaning, it was kind of split between the two of them. But there's no doubt that the Iowa group, which is reflected in the polls, she seems to be doing better in Iowa than she is in New Hampshire, and Mark found that up there.
You're certainly not hearing anything about emails in that. You're not hearing anything about trustworthiness, all of the things that have been screaming headlines over the past several months. When you go talk to Iowa Democrats, none of that even seems to surface.
It's the case in Iowa that they all are impressed that she's taking Iowa more seriously and campaigning closer to the ground. That's number one. Number two, they don't think there's any there on the email issue. And number three, they think she's handled it very badly. So there was a lot of discussion that we had in that group about how she should have owned it sooner, she should have been honest sooner, she should have taken it on sooner. But it was all about the politics of it and the perception of it. They don't believe there's any core issue there that makes them doubt her.
So New Hampshire, a more skeptical audience.
They similar on the emails. They don't like the way she handled it, but they don't think there's anything wrong with it. They don't think it should be a big deal. But that conversation, which we showed a little bit of at the end when they started talking about her personality, we showed her a video of what we thought was her at her best, giving a speech about policy and about her beliefs. And boy, they had a visceral reaction. And once that one woman suggested that she might have a personality issue, the whole room agreed. And as you saw, show of hands, they think that's what could stop her, that she's polarizing, and there's aspects of her personality that they think men in particular won't like.
And we actually cut a good bit in there out. That was even more negative of Hillary, because we thought it was actually too and didn't like some of the connotations there.
Ooh, okay, well, let's move on to Bernie Sanders, we're going to have on the show tomorrow, which is very exciting. Here's what groups in Iowa and New Hampshire had to say about Bernie Sanders.
Just describe a Sanders presidency.
More people-oriented. The revolution stuff, again, I think is awesome.
He tries to get people involved, as he's not going to do it all. You know, let's all work on this together, and I think that's the kind of thing people want to be involved in.
It's funny when you look at him, and he's hunched over. I mean, he looks like an old dude. I mean, he looks old, but the stuff he says, but he's in touch with, I think, a lot of the things we're thinking about.
Bernie Sanders. 3 words or fewer.
I would say knowledgeable and experienced as well.
Exciting. Forward-thinking.
Just another version of hope.
Visionary.
Game changer.
Who do you think is going to win the New Hampshire primary?
Let's go with Bernie Sanders.
Probably Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
Probably Sanders.
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 Who's going to win the Iowa caucuses on the Democratic side?
I'll say Bernie. He's leading right now, so.
Kara?
I would say Bernie, too.
Bernie.
I would say Bernie.
Bernie.
I think Hillary will.
No opinion. I don't know.
Teresa?
Hillary.
I don't know.
Shelby doesn't know.
I'm between Hillary and Bernie.
I have no idea.
Do you have concerns about Senator Sanders' age?
A little. I guess, like, my top concern would be, like, having a president just croak mid-term, you know?
Right.
I didn't like John McCain partially because of his age, and I think Sanders is 5 years older than McCain was.
Kara?
No, his age doesn't really bother me.
Is there anybody in the room who thinks when they hear that Bernie Sanders was a socialist that that's a problem?
I think it'll give him problems in the general election if he makes it that far. I think it's going to be a sell to the rest of America.
Those of you who now think Sanders will be the nominee, have you thought that all along, or are you just beginning to think that more recently?
More recently.
What's changed to make you think that?
You know, his ability to connect. Maybe the Democrats need something new, something that hasn't been tried. Why not Bernie?
Well, that's the question. What do you think? Why not Bernie?
Why not Bernie? I was really surprised as you guys went around, and in New Hampshire, it's all Bernie, and I said, okay, well, that makes sense. And then went to Iowa and had a lot of Bernie support there, too. And I started thinking, wait, is this like Iowa 2007 when Republicans came up to me and said they were going to be voting for this guy, Barack Obama? I mean, you just get a sense that something is starting to happen out there.
This is a real sea change. In my past reporting trips to Iowa and New Hampshire, a lot of people said, I really like Bernie. I agree with him on a lot of things compared to Hillary Clinton, but he's not going to win. We got to go with the person who's going to win. In these 2 groups, you saw unanimously in the New Hampshire group, every one of them said Bernie Sanders would win the New Hampshire primary. And these are, again, these people haven't taken a position on who they're going to support. A lot of them thought he could be the nominee and would be the nominee. That is a big difference because, as you know, psychologically, if people think he can win or that he's going to win, they're much more likely to consider him and vote for him. I thought that was a huge finding of the voices in these groups.
That's when the snowball really goes down the hill, is when people start believing it happened with Barack Obama after his first reporting period for money in 2008.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. And suddenly they start saying, Iowa.
What about Bernie?
How competitive in Iowa?
Very competitive. And you know, the interesting things to me were, I mean, I asked everybody in the room at one point whether they could imagine Bernie Sanders in the White House, and all but a couple could imagine that possibility. And we could discuss that, what that would be like, and people were thought that would be a positive thing. You know, many of them, as that one guy we showed there, expressed reservations about him being so far left as a kind of practical political matter. Would that hurt him in a general election? But in terms of what they thought on the issues, did they agree with him and his being a socialist? Was that a bad thing for them in terms of ideology? No. They were like, that's fine. A number of them sort of said, you know, I wouldn't call myself a socialist, but a lot of things the socialists believe, I believe too. Right. You know, the Democratic Party's gotten too out of touch with ordinary voters. We need to do this. We need to go after banks. We need to focus more on working people.
For real.
For real. That, you know, there was a lot of that. And he generated, even though there was a lot of warmth and respect for Clinton, there was more enthusiasm and electricity for Sanders.
You certainly sense that.
And I asked in the New Hampshire group, what is Bernie talking about? What are the issues Bernie Sanders talking about? They had lots to say. I said, what are some policy proposals Hillary Clinton has made? And she's made many specific ones.
A lot.
Crickets. Didn't know anything about what she